Good morning, students. I think it is audible for you. Good morning, everyone. Let us start the session. Yes. Yeah, good morning. Fine. So we are going to start the next unit. That is the 5th unit in your 12th syllabus. That is ecology. Okay. So this in this unit, you are going to study only theory things that is based on the environment and everything, right? So under this unit, we are going to study two chapters. One is organism and population, and other one is biodiversity and its conservation. Got it? Right. So first, before going to this organism and population, so let me give you some introduction about ecology. Okay. So ecology, right, by the name itself, you would have guessed what you're going to study about this unit, in this unit. Okay. So eco-friendly, so many things you would have studied about ecology, right? So in this lesson, we are going to discuss about some basic things relating to the environment. Got it? So first, let us see what is ecology, what we are going to deal in this unit. Then we can go into the chapter organism and population. Okay, fine. So first of all, you should know the definition of ecology. You know, logy is to study about, okay? And it is also a branch of biology. Ecology is not a completely a different one. It is a branch of biology. It is a branch of biology that deals with the interrelationship, that deals with the interrelationship. Inter means, you know, in between, okay? So interrelationship among the organisms, among the living organisms, okay? Among the living organisms, and also the interaction between the organisms and the environment, okay? Organisms and their environment. So the organisms where they are living, okay? So the living environment, okay? So you are going to study, it is a branch of biology that deals with the interrelationship among the organisms. Among the organisms means among all the living organisms. No living organism is independent. We are dependent on some other thing, right? So if you take plants, plants are related on, that is, they are dependent on consumers, and consumers are dependent on producers, okay? So all living organisms are interdependent on each other, and we are going to see the relationship between the organisms. So what is the interrelationship among the organisms, and also how the organisms are dependent on the environment, okay? You just think about living organisms survival without air, without water, without soil. All these are not possible, right? So we are dependent upon the abiotic factors, that is what we call it as environment for our survival. So how organisms are interrelated with each other and how organisms are interacted with the environment. So that is what this ecology branch deals with. So you should know how organisms interact with environment. So organisms interact with environment, interact with the different components of environment, okay? Different components means the main components of environment includes organisms interact with all the components of environment. So you would have studied in your smaller classes. The main components of the environment includes three important things. Atmosphere, that is the air that surrounds the earth. Hydrosphere, the water which occupies most of the earth's surface. And the third one is the land, which we call it as lithosphere, where all the living organisms are surviving, okay? So it is the land. So this air, water, land, they forms the major abiotic factors of the environment, or components of the environment where the living organisms are interacting, okay? So this is what we are going to discuss in this chapter. And regarding to this ecology, you should know one important neat question. Who coined the term ecology? The term ecology was coined by? This is a very, very important neat question, students. It was Ernest Haeckel. Already you have studied about this Ernest Haeckel in so many places, right? So in biological classification, when studying about the system level of classification, right? There you would have studied, and then Kingdom Protista, he coined the term Protista, okay? So in the same way, ecology term was coined by Ernest Haeckel in the year 1869. Year is not very important, but scientist name is very important, okay? Who coined the term ecology. Fine. So now we can go to the introduction of this organism and population chapter, okay? So please write down the definition of ecology. I will show you the first slide. This is the like what ecology deals with. You please write this. It is a branch of biology that deals with the organisms and also the interaction between organisms and their environment, okay? So have you all copied with the first slide? If they are asking you to define ecology, you have to write this. It is a branch of biology that deals with interrelationship among organisms and interaction between organisms and their environment. So organisms interact with environment how? It interacts with the components of environment such as atmosphere, hydrosphere and lithosphere. Okay. And who coined the term ecology was Ernest Haeckel. Fine. Now, please listen. Now we are going to the exact chapter of this, that is a unit, that is organism and population. So let me relate how this chapter is related with ecology. Okay, fine. Now listen, ecology is concerned with with 4 levels of biological organization, okay, with 4 levels. So this can be asked in your 2-mark question for your board, okay. What are the 4 levels of biological organization that is concerned in ecology? Ecology is concerned with 4 levels of biological organization. You know organization, right? An organization cannot be an individual. So it is like an individual, then it will form a group, then it will form a community, and in the different levels, the 4 levels of biological organization finally deals with the ecology. And what are the 4 levels of organization that is concerned with ecology? So let me tell you what are the 4 levels. The first level is organism level. Then organisms together they will form a population. Second level is population level. The third level is community level. Different population of different organisms, they will form a community. And finally, it will a large level of organization that we call it as biome. Okay. So organism level, population level, community level, biome level. These are the 4 levels of biological organization where the ecology is concerned with. Okay. So ecology is concerned means it is based on 4 different levels of biological organization. So what are the 4 levels? From the primitive level to the higher level, I have written organism level, population level, community level and biome level. And this chapter, you know the what is the name of this chapter? What we are going to deal with now is organisms and population. Okay. So this organisms and population or organisms and environment, this chapter is related to the first 2 levels of the biological organization, and that is what we are going to deal with, the organism level and the population level in this chapter. Okay. So now I will tell you what you are going to study first with the organism level. We are going to first start with the organism level of biological organization. You just complete it, then I will start in the next slide with the organism level. Yes, have you all completed, students? Biome, we'll see one by one, don't worry. So all this organism, population, community, biome, everything we are going to discuss. Please just listen. So without explaining what is organism level or what is population level, community level, I cannot say like biome, what is biome? You will not understand that, okay? So first let us move what is organism level. You just put the heading. First what we are going to discuss is organism level. So students, please listen. See, in this organism level, let me tell you the overall thing what we are going to discuss under this concept. Okay. So organism level, we are going to study adaptations. In organism level, we will study the adaptations of the organisms to the environment. You know, see, suppose if the living organisms are living in tropical or subtropical region, they will have different types of adaptation. And the organisms which are living in polar regions, they will have different adaptations, both morphological, physiological, anatomical, everything, right? So in this organism level, we are going to discuss about the adaptation of organisms to their environment, what type of environment they are living. Okay, depending on the type of habitat, they are going to have some adaptations, and those adaptations we are going to discuss. And these adaptations may be either for their survival, the adaptation of organisms to the environment, right? So why these adaptations should be there? Okay, so the adaptations are required for the survival of the organisms. Survival means for their living, okay, for the survival, or it may be for the process of reproduction. To undergo the process of reproduction, they will have some adaptations, right? So this aspect of ecology is called as physiological ecology. In this ecology, you have a sub-branch which deals with the adaptation of organisms to the environment, where the adaptations are needed for the survival of the organisms or for the process of reproduction. Okay, and this aspect of ecology is called physiological ecology, that is, which deals with the adaptations of organisms to the environment. Okay, got it? Fine. Now let me tell you how these adaptations will vary. Fine. So if you see the adaptations of the organisms based on the environment, first of all, what are the different environment that are available? So how the environment will change from one place to other place. So there will be seasonal variations, right? There will be seasonal variations of temperature and also precipitation. Seasonal variations of temperature and precipitation, it decides the environmental condition. Okay, so the seasonal variations of temperature and precipitation, it includes rain, snow, sleet. Okay, so all these comes under precipitation. So the seasonal variations of temperature and precipitation, which includes rain, snow and sleet, they are responsible. This seasonal variations of temperature and precipitation are responsible for the, what is that, the formation of biome. Okay, so they are responsible for the formation of different major biomes. So now I will give you some examples for biomes, then you can understand what is biome. Okay, biomes, like, let me tell you some of the biomes, like rainforest. Rainforest is one type of biome. Okay, and then deciduous forest. Deciduous forest. Desert is also one type of biome. Tundra is also one type of biome. All these you would have studied in your geography in your smaller classes, like sea coast, etc. Like you have so many different biomes. Okay, see, in each biome you can have different habitats also, like polar regions, mountain tops, then rain soaked forest, Rajasthan desert, ocean trenches, hot springs. All these are said to be the different habitats which are present in a biome. Now if you want to define biome, what is biome? So you can say, like, you can write the definition for biome, students. Please write the definition for biome. If you're not understanding, you can understand now. Okay, so actually a biome is a community. Many communities will combine together to form a biome. Okay, it is community of plants and animals, okay, that have the common characteristics that have common characteristics for the environment they exist in. For the environment they exist. They are existing in. Okay, fine. So it can be like this biome can be found over a range of continents, and biomes are also distinct biological communities that have formed in response to a shared physical climate. Okay, see, suppose if you are taking an biome called as rainforest, in this particular rainforest only typical species of plants and animals can survive. Only some community of plants and animals can survive, where the plants and animals will have the adaptations to survive in this particular biome. And if you go for deciduous forest, you will see different communities of plants and animals. So each biome is said to be made up of community of plants and animals. They will have the common characteristics, okay, for the environment they are existing in. So that is what we call it as biome. So the seasonal variations of temperature and precipitation, they will help in the formation of major biomes. So only the temperature and precipitation, they will decide the formation of biomes such as rainforest, deciduous forest, desert, tundra, sea coast, different. All these are said to be different biomes. And each biome is made up of community of plant and animals that will have the common characteristics for the environment they are existing in. Okay. See, sometimes in each biome, you can see some local variations also. In each biome, local variations will be there. These local variations may be physical variations or also chemical variations. Okay. Variations also, it may be chemical variations. Each biome will have local variations, physical or chemical variations. These variations, right, they further differentiate them. They further differentiate the biome into various habitats. Now the biome can be differentiated into various habitats. So let me tell you some of the habitats that are present in a biome. Okay, like if you take polar region, then mountain top, all these are different habitats that are present in a biome. Okay, then a rain-soaked forest, Rajasthan deserts, hot springs, ocean trenches, etc. You can say all these are the different habitats. Fine. So the each will have some local variations. The local variations, chemical variations present in each biome, they further differentiate them into various habitats such as polar region, mountain top, rain-soaked forest, Rajasthan desert, hot springs, ocean trenches, etc. Right. So now it is all these what we have discussed now are said to be the introduction for this organism and population chapter. And if you have NCERT in your hands, you can take NCERT and you can see one figure will be there which will be representing. So you can just refer this figure. I will just write down the heading. Later you can discuss this figure in your NCERT. Okay. These are said to be the major biomes in India. What are the major biomes in India with respect to how they have classified these biomes with respect to the annual temperature and precipitation. That is what I told you in the first itself. Based on the, I told you right here, see, seasonal variations of temperature and precipitation. They are the major factors that helps in the formation of biomes. Similarly, one figure will be given in your NCERT book. That is what are the major biomes in India with respect to annual temperature and precipitation. Based on India's annual annual temperature, right? That is, annual means per year. So the temperature that will be analyzed per year based on the average temperature calculated in each and every different areas. So based on the temperature and precipitation available, the major biomes in India will be given. So it includes, let me tell you what are the major biomes in India, and in the graph you can refer to that. The major biomes in India are represented as desert, grassland, tropical forest, temperate forest. All these are major biomes in India. Tropical forest, temperate forest, coniferous forest. Okay, then this tundra region. All these are the major biomes in India with respect to annual temperature and precipitation. Got? Yeah, wait. So physiological ecology means, wait, I will show you all the slides from the beginning. See, this is the first slide, this first slide is there like the definition of ecology. What does ecology means? Okay. So tundra region, it is also one biome. So as we have the coniferous forest, it is tundra region. You would have studied in geography. Tundra region is also said to be one type of biome. Okay. So it is the branch of biology that deals with the interrelationship among the organisms and also the interaction between organisms and the environment. And organisms, how we are interacting with the environment based on three important abiotic factors. One is air, another one is land. Now the second slide, the ecology term was coined by Ernest Haeckel. Ecology is concerned with 4 different levels of biological organization, and ecology is the study of all these 4 levels. The first primitive level is organism level, individual organisms. Organisms combine together when the organisms form a group and it is called as population. The second level is population level. When different population of different organisms combine, it will form a community. When different community of plants and animals combine together, it will form a biome. You just go, it is like step by step. Okay. So as you have in taxonomical classification, for example, I will tell you, in taxonomical classification, you would have studied like kingdom, phylum or division, then class, order, family, genus, species. So species is the lowest one. From species, you will go to the level. Organism is the lowest level. Different organisms, that is, the organisms combine together form a group called as population, and different population of organisms combine to form community. Different community of plants and animals combine to form a biome. Okay. So that is what in this chapter you are going to study about the first 2 levels of the biological organization. So the first level is the organism level. So organism level, you are going to study about how the organisms are adapted to the environment. So adaptations are mainly for the survival of the organisms and for the process of reproduction. So if in ecology in particular, you are dealing with yeah, fine. Student, sorry, signal got cut. Okay, right. So in the third slide, organism level. So I told you, right, the ecology, which particular deals with the adaptation of organisms to the environment. When it deals with the study of this, how organisms are adapted to the environment, then that particular sub branch of ecology is called as physiological ecology, right? Now, under this organism level, first you should know like how organisms will adapt to the environment. So based on that, you have to study some basic things about the environment, right? Then you can go to the adaptations of organism to the environment. To study about the environment, I'm telling you like the seasonal variations of temperature and precipitation. These 2 factors are the one which helps in the formation of major biomes. So the major biomes includes rainforest, deciduous forest, desert, tundra, sea coast. All these are said to be some of the major biomes which are prevailing all over the world. And how can you define a biome? biome is said to be the different community of plants and animals that have the common characteristics for the. See, if you see one community of plant that is existing in deciduous forest, that community of plant cannot adapt to the rainforest because here the environmental factors will be completely different. Okay, so a biome will be having a community of plant and animals that have the common characteristics that can easily adapt to the environment for their existing. Okay, and each biome will have, each of these biome will have the local variations that is called as physical and chemical variations, which further differentiate into various habitat like polar region, mountain tops, rain soaked forest, Rajasthan desert, hot springs, ocean trenches, etc., etc. Like you have so many habitats like this. Okay, and when talking about the different major biomes in India with respect to the annual temperature and precipitation, these are the major biomes in India: desert, grassland, tropical forest, temperate forest, coniferous forest, tundra region, etc. Okay, now we are going to, next what I am going to say is, each of these habitat, whichever habitat you take, if you take a desert, if you take a mountain, if you take a tundra region, if you take a coniferous forest, all these habitat will comprises both abiotic components and also biotic components. Okay, so any environment or any habitat will comprise of abiotic and biotic components, and we are going to discuss about these abiotic components first and how biotic components are adapted to this abiotic factor. Okay, so the abiotic, the most important abiotic components, is physical or chemical. The most important abiotic components that characterized that are present in various habitats includes mainly temperature. The important abiotic factors that makes the survival of living organisms are temperature, one, then light. We are going to discuss about each of these abiotic factors in detail: water and soil. Okay, so these are the major abiotic components or abiotic factors that makes the living organisms to survive. So each habitat, whichever habitat you take, it will be comprising this abiotic and biotic components. Okay, under abiotic components, the important abiotic components are temperature, light, water, and soil. And what are the major biotic components that will be present in a particular habitat? The biotic components, the biotic components that interact with organisms include mainly pathogen will be there. Okay, the disease causing organisms will be there. Then you will have parasites, which depends on some other living organism. Then you will have predators, you will have competitors, okay, etc. All these comes under your biotic components. And now first we are going to discuss about this abiotic factors. So let us discuss about abiotic factors one by one. Okay. Oh yes, of course. How, see, one student is asking how abiotic component affect the ecology. Abiotic component only decides whether the region is going to be like extremely hot or extremely cold, everything, right? So the first, in the initial step itself, I told you the seasonal variations of temperature and precipitation is going to form the biome. Then temperature is an abiotic factor, precipitation is also an abiotic factor, then abiotic factor only decides the environmental factors. Okay, so abiotic factors play a very, very important role. Both abiotic and biotic factors are important components of any habitat you take. Okay, if you take a habitat, for example an aquatic habitat, in an aquatic habitat, water will be an important abiotic factor, right? And temperature will also plays a very important role. Light will also play an important role. That is what we are going to discuss. We are going to discuss about each of these abiotic factors, how it will play a very important role in the survival of living organisms. Okay, so up to this, whatever we discussed is the introduction part for this chapter, organism and population. Okay, so starting from here, you can put the topic introduction. Okay, all these, here is the lesson starting. So introduction of this organism and population level starts here, and the third slide, fourth slide, fifth one, and the sixth one. Up to this is the introduction part. Now we are going to enter into the concepts of the chapter. The first concept what we are going to discuss is the abiotic factors. So I will show you from the third slide, students. From the third slide, you just copy, then we can start abiotic factors. This is the third slide. Fourth one. No. See, how can you say like intestine is a habitat? It is not a habitat, okay? Intestine is a part of a living organism. So part of a living organism means you can say the biotic factors like parasites are present in them, okay? So you cannot say it is like parasites are the one which are depending on other living organisms for their survival. So your parasite is living in your body in the sense you are a host and the parasite is a guest in the living body, okay? So you cannot say intestine is a habitat. If you say one environment is a habitat, that environment should consist of both living and non-living factors, that is abiotic factors and also biotic factors, okay? So intestine is a part of a biotic organism, that is a living organism. You cannot say intestine as a habitat, okay? So fine. So now we can start the chapter, that is the concept of the chapter. The first concept what we are going to see is abiotic factors. I told you what are the most important abiotic factors in the previous thing. We are going to discuss first about temperature, second about light, third about water, and fourth about soil. Okay. So these are the important abiotic factors we are going to discuss. Yeah, the lesson name is organisms and population. Fine. So under abiotic factors, the first factor what we are going to discuss is temperature. So this is an important 5-mark question in this chapter, ma. So in this 5-mark question, you will be asked to explain what are the important abiotic factors that determine the survival of living organisms. So if they are asking this question, you have to write all the 4 factors: temperature, light, water, and soil. Okay, fine. So first let us see about the temperature, how temperature determines the life of the living organisms. Okay, so talking about this temperature, temperature is a most important factor and it plays a significant role in determining the habitat. So if you want to determine the habitat, this temperature plays a very, very important role, okay? Because only based on the temperature, the living organisms, what is that? The biodiversity of the living organisms will vary, okay? So temperature is a very, very important factor. It is one of the important abiotic factor that determines the habitat, which plays a very important role that in determining the habitat. And in temperature, like if you take living organisms, under this living organisms, okay, you have one group of living organisms which can tolerate a wide range of temperature, that can tolerate a wide range of temperature. Wide range of temperature in the sense they can survive in extreme high temperature also. So these organisms that can tolerate a wide range of temperature, those organisms are called as eurythermal organisms. Okay, you know thermal means heat or temperature, U means true. So the organisms which can survive or tolerate under a wide range of temperature are called as eurythermal. And there are some organisms, majority of the organisms, okay, majority of the organisms. So these eurythermal organisms are very, very few. Only few organisms can tolerate a wide range of temperature, but majority of organisms, okay, they can tolerate only narrow range of temperature. Opposite to wide is narrow, okay, narrow range of temperature. And those organisms are called as, any idea? Any idea what those organisms are called as? The organisms that can tolerate wide range of temperature are eurythermal. And in living organisms, only few living organisms can survive under wide range of temperature. And the organisms, majority of the living organisms tolerate narrow range of temperature. Any idea what is the name of those organisms? Eurythermal? No? Nobody want to answer? Shall I tell? Pseudothermal. I thought like you will all give this answer. Yes, one student has given the correct answer. It is stenothermal. It is not pseudothermal. Okay. It is stenothermal. Stenothermal organisms means the organisms that can tolerate narrow range of temperature. Okay. So narrow range of temperature means like average range of temperature or below that average. And this wide range of temperature is above average. Okay. So only very few living organisms can survive under this high range of temperature. Most of the living organisms cannot tolerate high range of temperature. They will tolerate only narrow range of temperature, and it is called as stenothermal. Okay. Now, let me tell you what are the different temperature, that is the temperature range in the different habitat. So the temperature ranges from 0 degrees Celsius, okay, in polar region. If you go to polar region, it will be 0 or less than that too, minus, and also in minus, okay. Maximum it can go up to more than 50 degrees Celsius in tropical region. In tropical regions, it may go up to 50 or more than 50. And in polar region, it may go up to 0 degree or less than that, okay. So less than 0 degrees Celsius or equal to 0 degrees Celsius. Likewise, in tropical regions, it may be 50 or greater than 50 degrees Celsius in the tropical region. And even in the same polar region and tropical region, if you take tropical region, can you say all the habitat in the in the tropical region, everywhere the temperature will be like a constant, or it may be constant throughout the year? It will not be like that, okay. Even in the same habitat, if you take, the temperature vary from one season to other season, okay. The temperature will not be constant all throughout the year. The temperature will vary from one season to another season. And there are some unique habitats. Unique habitats means these habitats are of like completely different. These unique habitats may include like hot springs. Have you heard of hot springs? And also that hydrothermal vents. You know about hydrothermal vents or hot springs and all. So what is why they are unique habitats in the sense? Because here the average temperature itself, the average temperature of these regions exceeds 100 degrees Celsius. Okay. So these are all unique habitats where the temperature will be extreme level. Extreme in the sense they are going to be exceed 100 degrees Celsius. Example for those regions are hot springs and hydrothermal vents. Okay. Right. Now I will tell you how the organisms will vary depending upon the temperature. For example, if you take the habitat of mango tree, I will talk about plants and also about animals. Okay. So if you take the habitat of mango trees, right? So if you take the habitat of mango trees, or if you take the habitat of polar bear animal, or the animal called the snow leopard, tuna fish, etc. Right? If you just think about the habitat of these organisms, if you take the mango trees will live only in the which region? Only in tropical and subtropical region. You cannot grow mango trees in polar regions or in temperate region, because that climatic condition, that temperature condition will not be like suitable for the growth of mango trees. Okay, so mango trees will grow only in tropical and subtropical region, and it will not grow in temperate countries, temperate or polar region. Okay, so it will not grow in the temperate region or in the polar region. Okay, similarly, if you take polar bear, snow leopard, okay, so polar bear, snow leopard and all, they cannot be polar bear and snow leopard, they cannot be like found in the, they cannot be found in the forest of Tamil Nadu. Why they cannot be found in the forest of Tamil Nadu? Because they prevail, because Tamil Nadu, India comes under tropical country. Okay. And this polar bear and snow leopards and all, they will be seen only in the polar regions. That is in the, what is that? Extreme Arctic region or Antarctic region. So they cannot be seen in the tropical or subtropical regions. Okay. Similarly, if you take tuna fish, okay, tuna fish, they cannot be found in the oceans of temperate region. Tuna fish, no, they cannot be seen in the oceans of temperate regions. They cannot be seen in the oceans of temperate regions. Okay. So each one of their habitat will vary. Okay. Each one of their habitat will vary. And this is how temperature is playing a very, very important role in the survival of living organisms, both plants and also animals. Okay. So I have given one example for plant and some more examples for animals. So mango trees, they are like they can grow only in the tropical and subtropical region. They cannot grow in the temperate and polar region. Similarly, if you take polar bears and snow leopards, they can be seen only in polar region and not in the tropical or subtropical region. You cannot see them in the forest of Tamil Nadu or Kerala or anywhere, right? So similarly, tuna fish cannot be seen in the oceans of temperate region because they can be seen only in the polar regions. Okay, so all these are some examples for how organisms will like a temperature play a very important role in the survival of living organisms, which includes plants and also animals. Okay. And also, you know, the problem of global warming. You know about global warming, right? So that is the surface of Earth and atmosphere getting heated up, right? So the problem of global warming is affecting the distribution of range of various species. That is only because of the temperature, average temperature of the Earth surface. Okay. That's all. So we have completed the first abiotic factor, temperature. I will show you the temperature slides again from the 7th slide. So this is where we started the temperature. 7th, 8th and 9th slide. You just copy, then we can move on to the second abiotic factor, light. No. Cold-blooded, warm-blooded animals, that is different. Eurythermal and stenothermal is different. Okay. So one student is asking, is this stenothermal and eurythermal as other name for cold-blooded and warm? Cold-blooded and warm-blooded animals are respectively called as, cold-blooded animals are called as poikilothermus. Warm-blooded is called as homeothermus. That is different. Homeothermus is different from eurythermal and stenothermal. Okay. Don't get confused with that. 7th one, have you all completed? 7th slide, 8th slide. Then 9th one. So these are all some examples how temperature will play important role in the survival of the living organisms. Yeah, that's why, see, snow leopards are found in Himalayas. That is in sub-sea. Himalayas is like icy region, right? So that habitat is, that's why I have written polar bear and snow leopards cannot be seen in the forest of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Why Tamil Nadu and Kerala? Because they are all hot regions, right? Subtropical region, that is in Himalayas, you will have fully snow. When snow is there, fully icy covered regions, there polar bear and snow leopards can survive. 8th slide, huh? Yes, this is 8th one. Yes, please copy it fastly, students. I shall complete light also today, the second factor, abiotic factor. Okay. So now put down the second heading, that is we are going to discuss about the second factor called as light. Okay. Fine. So light, you know, like sunlight is a very important factor, which is also like a basic thing for the survival of living organisms. So if you take plants are mostly dependent, plants are 100% dependent on sunlight for the photosynthesis process. Am I right? Yes. And most of the plants, that is autotrophs, you know, plants are all mostly autotrophs in their nature, that is which are able to synthesize their own food, right? And they require sunlight. They require sunlight for the synthesis of food, that we call it as, that is the process is called as photosynthesis process. We know this very well. Okay, if you take some plants like shrubs and herbs, okay, so some plants like shrubs and herbs and all, they will prepare the food, that is they will photosynthesize in low intensity, that is in low light condition. They need not light, high intensity of light is not needed for the photosynthesis process to take place in herbs and shrubs. So the light condition will vary for the plants also. Shrubs and herbs, they will photosynthesize in low light condition. If you take the marine plants are like algae, okay, so if you take the marine plants like algae, so algae were, you know, like you would have studied algae, three different algae like green algae, brown algae and red algae. So algae will they will inhabit the different depth of the ocean. Okay, some algae will be seen in the top layers, some in the middle and some in the bottom. Okay, so they will inhabit the different depth of the ocean, and these algae, they need different color components. They need different color components of visible spectrum. Okay, so green algae, it needs different spectrum of light. Brown algae, it needs different spectrum of light, and red algae needs different spectrum of light. Okay, so algae, as they are inhabiting different depth of the ocean, they need different color components of visible spectrum, right? Now, if you take, for example, if you take red algae, I will tell you, you know, red algae will have the red color pigment. Can you tell me what is the name of the red color pigment? Can you tell me what is the name of the red color pigment present in red algae? In plant kingdom, you studied about Chlorophyceae, Phaeophyceae and Rhodophyceae, right? Xanthophylla. Xanthophyll is the red color pigment. Rhodophyceae. Anthocyanina. No, anthocyanin or cyanin. When you use the word cyanin, it is blue. Nobody knows what is the red. You forgot about plant kingdom chapter. Chlorophyceae, chlorophyll pigment. Brown algae, rhodopsin. Rhodopsin is the protein pigment present in our eyes. Very good. One student has given me the correct answer. Phycoerythrin. Okay, so this is the pigment that is present in the red algae. Now, when you compare this red algae to brown algae or green algae, red algae, it will be present in deep, that is, they will be present in greater depth of sea. They will be present in the bottom of the seas and oceans. Okay, and this red algae, it absorbs blue light for photosynthesis. Okay, so this is just for example, because previously I told you the concept, like algae, as they inhabit different depth in the ocean, as they inhabit the different depth of the ocean, they need different color components of visible spectrum for the photosynthesis. For example, you can write this: red algae, which is present in deep under the seas and oceans, they absorb blue light for photosynthesis. And you know one thing, sunlight cannot penetrate deep into the ocean. You know how much depth sunlight can penetrate? Sunlight cannot penetrate deep. If you go deep into the ocean, if you go to the bottom layers and all, it will be completely dark. Why? Because sunlight cannot penetrate. So sunlight cannot penetrate at the depth of more than 500 meters. So at the depth of more than 500 meters, okay, the inhabitants will be in dark, because more than 500 meters depth, light cannot penetrate. So the inhabitants, the animals which are present more than 500 meters depth, they will live in dark, because sunlight cannot penetrate. And so if they are like light cannot penetrate, and the organisms, what, they cannot photosynthesize also. They cannot photosynthesize for their energy. For energy production, that is, they cannot do photosynthesis because light cannot penetrate below 500 meters. Okay. And what will be in such cases, what will be the source of energy for these organisms which cannot photosynthesize? So what will be the source of energy for these organisms? Can you guess what will be the source of energy in such deep sea organisms like bacteria and all? They will undergo what process? Chemosynthesis. Have you studied chemosynthetic autotroph? Yes, using chemicals, the animals of deep, the bacteria and all, some organisms which are present deep under the seas and oceans, that is below 500 meters depth, they cannot undergo photosynthesis. They will undergo chemosynthesis. That is, what is chemosynthesis? Food synthesis using chemicals. Using chemicals, they will synthesize their food and they will gain their energy. Okay. And you can see some animals which are present deep under the animals of deep seas, they will have some adaptation. They will be either blind. Why? Because light will not be there. So their eyes will become vestigial, okay? Or it will become completely rudimentary. Or it will show a character. One character. Can any of you tell what character they will have? What is the name of the character? You would have studied. I will give you one example for that character. Noctiluca. Have you studied Noctiluca? Yes, very good. Bioluminescent character. Okay. Yes. So what do you mean by bioluminescence? The living organisms capable of absorbing and emitting the light. Okay. And that is called as bioluminescence character. And some animals which are present living in deep seas, right? They will have they will show the character of bioluminescence property. Bioluminescence character will be present. Okay. So under animal kingdom, you would have studied some cnidarians and all, they will have this bioluminescent character. Okay. So don't think like plants alone require light. Animals also require light. Okay. Because based on animals dependent on light. Based on animals dependent on light, they also have some activities. That is, they require light for their animals. Those who are active during daytime, they are called as what animals? Animals which are active during daytime are called as for their diurnal, and those who are active during night are called as nocturnal. Diurnal activities and also for their seasonal activities, they also require light. Okay. So plants require light mainly for photosynthesis. Animals are dependent on light for their diurnal activities and for their seasonal activities. Okay. And sometimes animals will also undergo foraging process. Okay. Migration, reproduction. Okay. So all these foraging, migration, reproduction, all these processes depend on the specific photoperiod. Photoperiod, you know, right? You would have studied photoperiod in plant growth and development chapter. That is, the duration or exposure to light is called as photoperiod. Okay. So photoperiod, it depends upon the duration or the exposure and also based on the intensity of the light. Okay. Based on the intensity of light, how the animals are exposed or how long they are exposed to the light, sunlight. Okay. So based on that, the foraging process, migration, reproduction also happens, and sunlight is the source of heat, and it also varies from one biome to other. Okay. So the light intensity also varies. The sunlight intensity which is the source of heat and also the source of light. Okay. So this sunlight intensity also varies from one biome to another. As the temperature varies from one habitat to other habitat, so sunlight intensity also varies from one habitat to the other habitat. That's all about the light. Okay. Now I will show you all the slides of your light. So here we started the light. Yeah, kelp is an algae. It is the largest algae. Okay, it is a one type of brown algae, and it is called as giant algae. The common name for kelp is giant algae. It can grow up to 1 meters. Okay. Fine. So this is the 10th one, ma. This is 11th one. See, students, oh, this chapter is completely theory part. Okay. I will tell you, it will be little bit vague. Be vague in the sense it will be boring for you. Of course, I know. Actually, it is boring for me also to teach. So obviously, it will also boring for you to listen. But no way, it is there in our syllabus. Simply without understanding the concept, you cannot memorize directly as it is theory. Okay. So that's why I am teaching. As it is theory, I cannot give more explanation for this. Okay, simply you have to understand the concept and then you have to memorize it. That is the thing when reading this chapter. That's why I'm going actually, if it is in the direct class, I need not to write everything on the board. By more explanation with the direct interaction, I can take it in the class. But as we are in online classes, I have to write everything on the slides because you are not seeing my face. I am not interacting directly with you. Okay. So I cannot I don't understand whether you understood or not. That's why I am writing everything on the slide. Okay. You please don't feel lazy to copy that. You also please. Otherwise, if you are feeling lazy to copy everything in your notebook, then I will also not write everything on the slide. I'll just give you oral lecture and you cannot, by listening to oral lecture, you will not understand fully. Okay. So please make use of it. The slides, what I am writing, copy everything in your notebook. So this is 12th one. And this is 13th one. Okay. Now I will show you all the slides from the beginning. Last one more minute. I will show you first from the beginning. This is the first slide. Wait, I will show you all the slides. Don't worry. So please take a pic or snapshot. I think as it is theory part, in the last minute, you cannot write everything. You just take a pic from your mobile or take a snapshot and later you sit and write in your notebook. Those who didn't copy, okay. Others, those who have copied the slides simultaneously, not a problem. Others, those who didn't copy, you please take a pic. Second slide. So this is just, I told you, this is not needed. Don't copy this. Third one. This is where the lesson is starting. Okay. Fourth one. Fifth one. Sixth one. Seventh. Eighth. Ninth. After listening to the class, if you go and read your NCERT, you will be able to understand. But without listening to the class, without attending the class, if you read your NCERT, you cannot understand anything. Okay. Because in NCERT, it will not be given in a proper order. They will mix everything, all the concepts mixed together. It will not be under subheadings and all. Okay. So don't think it is just a theory topic. So you don't want to listen to the class and directly you can read in your NCERT. Some concepts only if you attend the class, you will get to know from the base. Yeah, this is the last one. Okay, students. So we have completed 2 abiotic factors today. So we can complete the remaining 2 abiotic factors and tomorrow we can see how organisms will respond to it. See, actually the direct topic is what are the adaptations of the organisms to the environment. But without knowing what is environment, what is there in your environment, you cannot study how organisms will adapt to the environment. That is the reason first we are reading about the abiotic factors. Then we will discuss how organisms will adapt to the particular environmental condition. Okay, got it? Only this organism level will go weight, population level will be interesting. Okay, okay, fine. Tomorrow we can try to complete this 2 factors and the remaining concept in the organism level. So thank you so much. See you all tomorrow. Please start reading for your coming week NEET exam, Human Health and Disease complete chapter. Thank you.